What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and quick little update as to why there is no Under the Radar episode this week, or even why there was no review video posted on Sunday. Well, there wasn't a whole lot that came out over the weekend that really kind of caught my eye to do a solo review, and there also wouldn't have been enough material for me to do an Under the Radar episode. Typically, whenever I do Under the Radar, I want to do at least 4 albums. There wasn't enough for me personally to do an episode, so I figured to make up for both of those things, I figured, why not let's do a retro review? And I got an interesting one. Now, whenever it comes to me choosing what I want to talk about for a retro album review, I mean, I could always go back and do like a classic album and give you my opinion on it. And I do like doing that, but for this one in particular, I actually kind of wanted to touch on something that's more underground and much more obscure. Because I know there are a lot of metalheads that are unfamiliar with this band, and I hope that through this review that I'm doing, it'll turn people on to this band and actually encourage them to pick up this album, because I have it in my possession right here. So what I am reviewing is the 1992 to 1994 discography compilation album from Timeghoul. So yeah, this actually was a compilation released on Dark Descent Records 10 years ago. So it's also a 10th anniversary kind of special thing here, but Dark Descent Records re-released both of the demos that Timeghoul did back in the 90s, and this is actually a 2-disc set, because it also has a second disc with pretty much rehearsal tracks, a live gig from St. Louis in 92, and their first ever 4-track recording in 89 when they were under a different name. But we're primarily talking about disc number 1, which is both the Tumultuous Travelings and Panoramic Twilight demos. 6 tracks we're going to be talking about. But before we get there, let's get into a little bit of a history about Timeghoul. So for this, I will have to read off of Metallum, because I got too many things in my head to really remember everything. But, so, Timeghoul originally formed as Doomslayer in 1987 out of Forestell, Missouri, with bassist, or actually no, we're talking about the Timeghoul lineup coming up, but that band would only last from 87 to 91, then they changed their name in 1991 to Timeghoul. And this lineup in 91 consisted of bassist Chad McNeely, guitarist Mike Stevens, second guitarist TJ Old Danny. Well, he was a guitarist at one point, but the other 2 members who are prime in this early period and really throughout the rest of the band's career, Tony Hallman on drums and Jeff Hayden on guitars, vocals, and keyboards. So this was the kind of the early lineup of the band, and 1992 comes around, they released Tumultuous Travelings, and then afterwards TJ would leave the band, and in walks Gordon Blodgett, who I will give a shout out to later on when we get to the ending of this video. He comes in on guitars and shares guitar duties with Jeff, and in 94 released Panoramic Twilight. Then the band broke up shortly thereafter. And they're always a band that I feel like if they had existed, gotten a record deal, and made some studio work, I think they would be a death metal juggernaut right now, because there are tons of bands out there that kind of either inspired Timeghoul, or the bands Timeghoul themselves would kind of inspire down the road. Bands like some of the early influences I can hear in Timeghoul's music would be definitely Morbid Angel, probably near at the top. Even some Suffocation, a little bit of maybe even Nocturnus here and there in terms of atmospheric parts. But as far as bands that you can kind of hear that kind of were going around the same time that kind of had a similar style, this is very technical, almost avant-garde, progressive death metal with hints of black metal and doom metal at times. You get other bands that were happening around the same time, like Demolich and The Chasm, going around this period, and even Immolation a little bit, with as far as some of the atonal riffs you get to hear in Timeghoul's music. But as far as bands that came out in the years after they broke up that kind of carried on a little bit of their influence, Blood Incantation's probably the most notable one, but even like Mithras, Nucleus, Desolation Realm, Cosmic Atrophy, among a lot of other like spacey, technical, progressive, doomy death metal bands, avant-garde even a little bit. So, now that we got the history of the band out of the way, let's actually talk about the album in question. So we're talking basically a review of both of their demos, their only recorded material released to the world through tape trading and such. So for the 92 through 94 discography album, we kick things off with the Tumultuous Travelings demo, with the first track being Rain Wound. So after you get some rain and thunder ambience going on, some guitar sounds come in to kind of provide an eerie atmosphere before it unleashes into a bit of like a sinister guitar progression to add on to that atmosphere. And then afterwards, things pick up in the tempo real quick, as in the build-up, it leads into some heavy and brutal technical riffs with black metal blast beats. Like, it's not like the traditional death metal or even grindcore blast where it's like, it's more the black metal blast, like almost like a thrash beat, but a little bit faster, and instead of hitting everything at the same time, it's alternating. That's how I can distinguish blast beats. Like, if you see or hear a blast beat going like this, it's pretty much black metal. Whereas, like, if it's like super fast but alternating, that'd be grind, or everything at the same time, that's death metal. So that's how I can differentiate the blast beats from a lot of different extreme metal bands. But I digress. And once those technical riffs and the black metal blasts come in, the track kind of goes back and forth for a moment between feeling technical and brutal, and even some thrash nods show up in the beats and some of the riffs. Then you get into a death metal blast beat, and it's got some hammering anvil sounds going on, also in between some more of the thrash parts. Then things slow down to borderline Death Doom territory as we get some dark, clean vocals coming in, leading into the brutal, evil growls that Jeff does. And I have to say, Jeff's growls kind of harken a little bit of Dallas Toller Wade from Nile. Like, I almost feel like maybe Dallas was inspired by Jeff when it came to his vocal style and vocal delivery in terms of death metal growls, because Dallas has a very distinct death metal vocal. But when I hear Jeff's vocals throughout this whole album, or this whole compilation, I could kind of hear actually where Dallas got a little bit of his inspiration from, was from Jeff Hayden, because Jeff Hayden, I think, kind of set the tone for the more brutal, evil growl. Not like gutturals, but like low, growly, evil sounding. If hell, I'm going to suggest to you, after you watch this video, to listen to a track off of this compilation, listen to the growls, and then listen to Dallas on any Nile album, from Black Seeds of Vengeance to What Should Not Be Unearthed. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right. But anyways, then we get some evil tremolo riffs that kind of bring in a little bit more of that black metal vibe at times. And the drums are just going absolutely bonkers. Like, I love the drum work that Tony does, going from the black metal blast to some even grindy blast beats here and there, but also some really cool drum fills going on. And things end off with more of that chaos and evil brutality that the song was able to project throughout much of it. Then we get into the track The Siege, track number 2. Awesome drum intro that's soon followed by thrashy riffs and more of that thrash intensity going on, before things turn evil real quick as some heavy and evil technical riffs come in with more of those blackened blast beats. And then when the vocals come in, the song turns more mid-tempo with some guitar melodies coming in to add more of a dark feel to the song. Afterwards, you bring back some more of the technical play for a moment before it slows down a little bit, as there's a groove kind of building the tension within the track before it gets back into more evil technical riffs and blast beats coming through. And the blast beats go back and forth between feeling black metal and feeling death metal. And then the riff and tempo shift that follows, Definitely reminds me of something Morbid Angel would do. And then the Doom vibes return as the track slows down even more, and you get some more cool, dark, clean vocals. Like, Jeff's clean, like, dark cleans are really, really cool. They're almost ritualistic and chanting kind of vibe to him. Almost like David Vincent's dark, deep cleans. Except here, I think it sounds just a little bit more evil and ritualistic. And it even helped give the song, or at least this section, a little more sinister, ritualistic feels. And even with the music, the atmosphere of this whole Doom section just carries that feeling even further. And then after a huge growl, back to the technical chaos to bring this track to a close. Then we get into track 3, Gut Spawn. Heavy technical riffing right off the bat with some black metal blasts and even some D beats going on, like a little bit of like that hardcore D beat comes in a little bit, and that's what starts us off on an evil note. Strange guitar work happening early on with even some tapping parts going on to add a little bit more to the technical nature of the music as a whole, before it slows down to that more Death Doom influenced sound, with the riffs and the tempo slowing down quite a bit. Then things get a little bit groovy at about the 1 minute 41 second mark, as the riff again brings back a little bit more of that Morbid Angel influence, with some gross black metal-esque raspy screaming vocals at times, or at least it's like a little bit of that coming in. And the song actually goes back and forth between having those, or no, the song goes back to the technical parts, but then it's also building up more tremolo riffs going on, as well as the black metal blasts and eventually the death metal blasts kind of co-mingling, trading off of one another. Some atonal riffing coming in definitely would remind you a little bit of Immolation, especially. But yeah, some atonal riffs, excellent drum work before it slows back down to the more Death Doom territory for a moment. Then it gets thrashy, and then the track ends with more of those black metal blasts and technical tremolo riffs, and it helps to unleash chaos and viciousness to bring this track to a close. And then we get to track number 4 of the album, and the final track of the Tumultuous Travelings demo, Infinity Coda. Heavy atonal riff gets us started here before it unleashes into yet another heavy yet technical tremolo riff with the black metal blasts. The riff actually gets more intense as the blast beats that follow that get more death metal oriented. Then it once again turns doomy with the riff and the tempo shift. Afterwards it gets thrashy, almost into a bit of like a Slayer inspired part, before it gets chaotic with the riff and the beats as technicalities being brought forth once again. Some of the riffing going on here gets a little proggy as well. We get another awesome groove afterwards. Some dark melodic riffs come in near the end to add more atmosphere. And as things pick up afterwards, gets back to the technical chaos to bring the song and this portion of the album to a close. Now, before we move on, had to take me a little drink after that, because now we get into the final 2 songs of the album, and we get to the Panoramic Twilight demo part of the album, kicking it off with track number 5, Boiling in the Hourglass. An evil technical riff going on, while there's some like Slayer-esque squealy dive bombs going on to add a little bit more chaos. And even a quick melodic line comes in, and that's what starts this track off, with that kind of like evil riff, squealy dive bomb, quick melodic intro. Then it gets into some dark sci-fi ambience and evil chanting, almost barbershop quartet-esque vocals to make the atmosphere even more evil. And then a badass riff just comes punching you right in the face, and this riff definitely kind of feels like a mix of Suffocation and Morbid Angel, with some killer death metal blast beats happening along with that riff. Then it gets into like a more vicious tremolo riff with a thrashy beat going on before it gets back to the chaos for a moment. I cannot get my words right at the moment. Things then get very atmospheric real quick afterwards as we get some dark guitar melodies that once again bring in that Morbid Angel vibe with more of the cool, dark, clean vocals coming back, trading off with the evil growl, leading into an awesome Death Doom section. Excellent drum work even throughout the Death Doom section. It's not sticking to like the traditional Doom pocket. You get some cool fills and some double bass going on. Then we get our first real lead of the entire album, and it's atmospheric, technical, melodic, and it was well executed. It kind of had almost a little bit of like an evil Pink Floyd vibe at times, because some of the feels coming in kind of has a little bit of that David Gilmour vibe I hear at times. Then it gets into a nice chuggy riff with some melodic play going on in the background. Some proggy flair shows up through some time changes and the guitar work. Then we get into some madness with the guitars as we get some evil riffs and melodic lines and blast beats that once again bring back that Morbid Angel influence. Afterwards, another really cool atmospheric, evil, and melodic guitar section comes in as it's more about atmosphere and building tension as things slow down. And it's a wonderful section of the song, and then it gets back to more of that dark sci-fi ambience from earlier with some evil growling chants going on before it returns to the badass riff we heard earlier in the track with those blast beats to bring this track to a close. And then we get to actually my favorite song Timeghoul did, and it's the finale of both the album and the Panoramic Twilight demo, and that's Occurrence on Mimas. After more cool sci-fi ambience and even like a radio transmitter, spoken word part, we get into some evil, doomy riffs and atmosphere building right here at the beginning, and then it unleashes into some chaos with some insane and evil atonal riffs and awesome blast beats that come in, just unleash pure heaviness. The dark, clean vocals comes back as it leads the way for this next portion of the track where the riffs get technical, but the drums get thrashy. This is one of my favorite parts of anything Timeghoul did with this section. I really loved it. And then the riff that follows has a nice mix of chug, but still got some technical execution going on, kind of like a Suffocation riff. And then things slow down back to the Death Doom vibes, as the guitars also get really melodic and dark, while the drum work is quite profound throughout. Then we get the most atmospheric lead all throughout this whole album, as it's melodic, yet like I said, it's very atmospheric. This definitely has more of that Pink Floyd influence in terms of feel and atmosphere, but also mixed in a little bit with like that Trey Azagtooth influence a little bit in terms of creating a sinister vibe on top. And then even afterwards, the song slows down even more to almost funeral doom territory at times to build more atmosphere, and then the dark, clean vocals go back and forth with the growls. And it's like, at moments after this section, it builds up even more as it kind of goes back and forth between like a moment of groove, and then it gets into like a quick fire, fast technical part, and then back to a groove, then some technical play, then the groove. Then we get an awesome evil tremolo riff and blast beats that start off, and then, or the blasts start off feeling death metal, and then they turn blackened while the guitars are just going absolutely wild. And during the blackened blast section, like I said, the guitars get very wacky, again, similar to how Trey from Morbid Angel can get wacky on guitar. Then a badass dark riff comes in along with a big black metal scream before we get a sinister harmonic lead section that once again brings in that Trey influence and even a little bit of that Gilmour influence again. Some spacey guitar lines come in before we get a brutal breakdown that kind of has that sinister atmosphere and vibe of Morbid Angel, but with the chops of Suffocation. And in the middle of the breakdown, the guitars even showcase a little bit of melodic flair in the background. And then we get to the conclusion of the song where it just unleashes into one final big blast beat with evil guitar melodies. And then it ends with that heavy, evil doom riff from the beginning of the track to bring the song and the album to a close. So yeah, there was a lot going on with all 6 of these songs, as, like I said, a lot of the technical riffs kind of harken a little bit of like Suffocation, maybe even a little Gorguts and Nocturnus, but the atmosphere and the vibes and the evilness kind of brings in that Morbid Angel influence, but also like the blast beats going from every direction, some blackened blasts, some grindy blasts, some death metal blasts. Like the drum work was excellent top to bottom. Guitar work was incredible. Like these technical lines, you would have to be a master at guitar to be able to play a lot of these parts that you'll hear on this album. But the doomy riffs were very suffocating and evil sounding. And then like the vocals, like the vocal performance was top notch. The growls were very low, very evil. And then the clean vocals retaining that dark vibe to it. Almost a bit of like a... almost like a low Dan Swano clean, like a gothic clean at times, is what I kind of got a little bit with some of the dark, clean parts on this whole entire album. But yeah, like, the Morbid Angel vibe was quite strong in a lot of the songwriting, some of the Suffocation parts in terms of, like, the really fast technical parts, but even some more black metal influence coming in from some of the tremolo riffs you get. But yeah, top to bottom, and also, like, lyrically, very science fiction, fantastical. And like I said, this is, I think, a reason why a lot of bands today, like Blood Incantation and even, like, Desolate Realm, kind of bring in a little bit of that sci-fi, astral influence in the lyrical content, and it matches up with the music very, very well. So yeah, this is the longest review I've done because all these songs just had so much going on. I couldn't just simplify it down. I had to really kind of go into detail with a lot of these parts because they just go everywhere. It gets technical, proggy, avant-garde, doomy, blackened, but all on top of their amazing death metal sound. Again, I feel like if this band was still going to this day, they'd be a juggernaut in death metal. No question. Now, as far as the score, I'm going to give this a perfect 10 out of 10. This is a fantastic compilation album. All 6 of these songs are very different from one another in terms of feel and atmosphere. Yeah, there are some similar riffs going on, but all those riffs were fucking amazing, whether it was the doomy stuff, the chuggy parts, or even the technical or tremolo riffs. Just the guitar work. Absolutely incredible. The drums, man, Tony is such an underrated drummer, like, holy shit. And then the vocals, Jeff Hayden, fucking salute you. So yeah, unfortunately the band broke up in '94 after the Panoramic Twilight demo came out. However, one guy from the band that's still going to this day as far as making music and actually still getting his name out there is Gordon Blodgett, or Blodgett. I'm totally fucked that up, I apologize. Gordon Blodgett. He's actually got a really cool YouTube channel. I actually will have a link in the description box for you guys to check out his channel. He does kind of like discography rankings. He calls thick slices and deep cuts. He reviews pizza. He does rankings for bands and even gives you opinions on a lot of bands he loves. So he's a big, like, Nawabum, death metal, prog fan, thrash fan. Like, he loves all kinds of stuff. So if you're looking for more variety and music talk, definitely check out Gordon Blodgett's channel. Really cool. I hope that this video helps him get more subs because he's only at 174 subs and he deserves more. Not only is he a great guy from what I've seen on his videos, but if you listen to his guitar work on the final 2 tracks on this album, he's a hell of a guitarist. So yeah, I hope this video kind of helps his channel get bigger, and maybe I can get Gordon on the Horseman podcast one day and we can talk more in depth about Timeghoul stuff and talk about metal as a whole and just have fun. So Gordon, if you're watching, I appreciate you for existing on YouTube and contributing big to the final 2 tracks on this album. But yeah, 10 out of 10 for Timeghoul's 1992 to 1994 discography compilation by Dark Descent Records. I'll also have a link in the description box for you guys to buy this record, whether it be... I'll have two links, one from Dark Descent and one from eBay. In case you can't get it on Dark Descent, get it on eBay if you have to. Just get it somehow. Buy it somehow. But anyways, thank you guys for watching this review. Yes, this was a big premiere, so I hope people were talking all throughout. But until next time, actually the next big metal video I'm thinking about doing is going to be the Dark Throne discography ranking. 19 albums. That's going to be a lot to cover, but until next time, horns high, and I will see you soon.
I've noticed that once people hit Slayer, they're like, is there something more extreme than Slayer?
Yeah, it's the crossroad, you know. Either you're going like, okay, this is too much, or you're like, I need more. Yeah, so I found Cannibal Corpse on YouTube when I was 12 or 13, and heard the Hammer Smash face bass solo.
Of course.
Of course, already then I was a bass player, but when I heard that, I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. This is it. And then it just spiraled downwards from there.
And it just keeps growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, it never stops. It devours you.
Yeah, because